6 of the best in the business. Vladimir Kramnik, Anish Giri, Hikaru Nakamura, Levon Aronian, Alexei Shirov and Vishy Anand facing each other in a couple of trials. They start the opening night tonight with playing Blitz, but it's not counted for the overall tournament. The only goal of it is to determine who gets more whites in the rapid part of the tournament. So tonight is the opening night. The 3 players that do best in the Blitz tonight will get 3 white games as opposed to the 2 white games the 3 losers of tonight are going to get. Then they're going to play 5 rapid games over Saturday, Sunday and Monday. Each of these rapid games will be worth 2 points. And then there's another Blitz on the Monday night, I believe, where 5 more games are played, where players can qualify, can score extra points for the event. So 5 rapid games worth 2 points, 5 Blitz games worth 1 point. Tonight is only used to determine the colors in the rapid event. There we see the camera from Zurich. I'm in Hamburg, I'm not on site, but we do have a video feed from over there. The opening ceremony is almost over. I believe there was a lot of classical music. I couldn't hear it, but the players did look very pleased sitting in the first row. Vishy, Vladimir Kramnik, Anish Giri, Hikaru Nakamura, Levon Aronian and Alexei Shirov. Also some guests of honor I've spotted, like I believe Anatoly Karpov is there, Viktor Korchnoi is there. So a lot of chess celebrity has made their way to Zurich. There we see some reporters, Dirk Jan Goosendam from New Chess and Kathy Rogers. While Levon Aronian is sneaking up the stage, there's Levon taking a seat. Gets served stuff, must be nice. And there we see Alexei Shirov, who hasn't been playing in super tournaments for a bit now. So he's gonna be excited to have this chance. He's by far the lowest rated, not only in classical, but also in Blitz. I checked the Blitz rankings earlier, where Shirov is like 2592, which is pedestrian compared to Hikaru Nakamura, who's almost 2900, the number 1 in the world in Blitz, and Levon Aronian, there we see the 2, who is a former World Blitz champion in, I believe, 2010. He won the Blitz World Championship. So I believe this is the game of the round. Since it's Blitz, I'm not sure I'll be able to keep track of all the games at the same time. We're gonna choose one per round and follow that primarily. But of course, jump around should the game be over soon or boring, and have a look at it. First round, we got Nakamura Aronian, as you can see there on camera. We got Kramnik against Giri. That's always an exciting matchup. Kramnik has been crushing Giri in classical chess. Not so sure how the relationship is in Blitz. And we have Alexei Shirov with the white pieces against his old rival Vishy Anand. The 2 played a World Championship match in the old days of the Knockout World Championship. They met in the final, which Vishy won convincingly. Trying to recall when that was, but I don't have a clue. Early 2000s? Probably you guys know. So let's see. Let the games begin. There we see all the players seated. Shirov against Vishy, then in the middle Nakamura against Levon Aronian, and on the far left Vladimir Kramnik towering over Anish Giri. But that's only when it comes to height. When it comes to chess, we shall see, even though there he's been doing well as mentioned. I believe the time control is going to be 4 minutes plus 2 seconds, which is not the classical time control of 3 minutes plus 2 seconds that's used for official events. So a little more extra time, and we have liftoff. We have moves in the game, which I'm going to mainly keep an eye on, even though they've played the Berlin, so I'm already close to changing my mind. Nakamura against Aronian, Levon Aronian playing the opening that is most popular at top level these days, knight f6, and one of his 2 preferred choices together with the marshal. d3, and the first surprise by Levon, he goes bishop to d6. The move everybody and their dog plays here is bishop to c5, which looks a lot more natural, but bishop d6 has some point. It protects the e5 pawn, and it renders all ideas with bishop takes c6, d takes c6 more or less useless, because then the bishop would be better placed on d6 than on c5. It is not, however, in these c3 lines, which Hikaru Nakamura played, so Levon is working on justifying it. He's played rook e8. He's intending to drop his bishop back to f8 at a good moment. So far, natural development, a6, b5, the bishop goes back to c2. Now I would expect either bishop f8 directly in order to play d6. Yeah, that's what he's done. Or bishop b7 first. But Levon's played bishop f8, rook e1. Now he's a choice between d6 and the move d5, which is very close to martial players' hearts to gain space in the center immediately. Sometimes it's a bit of fool's gold because you then end up protecting these pawns, but Levon has gone for it, has played d5, seizing the center, and has solved his opening problems reasonably well, I would say, at least at first sight. It's a very typical structure. White normally goes for something like queen e2, knight f1, h3, knight g3, and black faces a choice if he wants to keep the tension in the center, if he wants to release it by going de4, or if he wants to push d4, gain more space, but also give white a bit more freedom. Hikaru tries to bother him on the queen side by going a4, threatening a takes b5. Typical reaction is rook b8, or just moving this bishop in order to protect the rook. We'll see what Levon chooses. He could put the bishop on b7 as well, but I'd be reluctant to do that, because sometimes the bishop from b7 doesn't find all that much work. The e4 pawn is well protected, and just as I condemned the move, he plays it. That's what tends to happen. So yeah, quiet opening in the Nakamura-Aronian game. We're gonna come back to it and have a very, very brief glance at the other games. Kramnik against Giri. Offbeat opening, as Vladimir Kramnik does a lot nowadays with white. Two pairs of minor pieces have been exchanged, roughly equal, even though I think Kramnik might be a tad better here. Giri still has to get his pieces out, and there he goes, d6, knight d7. Shirov against Anand is a sharp Sicilian, no side holding any punches back. I'm not sure if that's an expression. Just ef and knight to e5 played. I don't know, I like white's position. Put a rook on d1, go b3, go knight to f5, but Vishy Anand is a great connoisseur of all things Sicilian, so of course I'm not really gonna question his understanding of these positions. Knight f5, you could chop it off, then white would probably go ef to free his bishop, hitting the rook, and the rook could go to c8. When it's unclear if white's bishops or black's strong knight and maybe possibility to exchange these bishops are more important. So, like the old days, Shirov and Anand playing a Sicilian, and we're gonna get back to our main event game, the game Nakamura against Aronian and the good old Berlin. And we have this structure that sometimes occurs after h3, h6. He did take on d5, queen takes d5, b4, and drop the queen back. So white didn't want to wait around for black to determine the situation in the center, but instead took on d5 himself and played b4 to control this square, to fix this pawn so it can never go here. And I quite like this for white. He now played knight e4, which is another typical device. If knight takes e4, then d takes e4, and all of a sudden the structure is back to symmetrical, but black has more problems than white, because especially his queen side, the pawn on b5, a6, and even c7 can become a little weak. This bishop can go here. The other bishop has a nice square on e3. So there is plenty of options for white, and I don't think that it's very pleasant for black to play. So Nakamura, the world #1 in Blitz, which Magnus Carlsen won't be all that excited about, seems to have reached a good position here against Levon Aronian. Aronian seems to be taking his time here, so we will briefly switch back to Shirov Anand, check in what's going on there. Rook ad1 has been played, knight to c4, interesting. Anand doesn't keep his knight on its strong outpost on e5, but tries to generate counterplay with knight c4, queen c1, bishop f6, b3. Now the knight returns to e5. Not sure who's benefited from this little dance with knight c4, queen c1. Probably no one, because the white queen should go back to d2. With a typical Sicilian-esque position. My best guess is it's roughly equal, but most of the drama is yet to occur. In Kramnik Giri, we do have some simplifications. Giri just played rook fd8, hitting the bishop on d3, and if the bishop drops back, let's say to f1, he probably wants to activate his rook, going rook to d2, unless I'm blundering all my material here. But no, I'm not, because if queen takes b8, all of this is my analysis, so don't panic, Kramnik fans out there. Then there is a checkmate. But none of this is very likely to happen. Bishop f1 is on the board, rook d2. White could but just play, I don't know, a move like b3, keeping his b pawn alive. This queen cannot take on f2 because of the pin, and we have a roughly equal endgame, I would say. Aronian, in the meantime, forgive me for all the switching, I'm just trying to keep track of everything, but probably that's not the smartest way to do it. I should focus on this one game between two of the very heavyweights in the Blitz world, and of course in the any world of chess, Levon Aronian and Hikaru Nakamura. Knight d5, bishop b3, rook a d8. I think there's a tactic here. Tactics, ladies and gentlemen. Can we take here? Bishop h6, if gh6, bishop d5, followed by knight f6 check. And yeah, he's done it. We see it there on the camera. Bishop takes h6 is on the board. Looks like Levon Aronian missed that. He's trying to fire back by going knight takes c3. The point is, after knight takes c3, now he can take on h6. And this knight can no longer deliver a family fork. But the black king is still very, very weak after this. So if the knight just returns to e4, I do not like black's position one bit. Let's see, there we see, yeah, Hikaru went knight to e4, threatening knight f6 check. Bishop g7 looks like the normal way to parry this, but bishop g7 loses sight of the c5 square. So this knight could jump in here with a very threatening position for black at the very least. So Hikaru Nakamura keeps adding to his reputation as one of the, if not the best blitz player around. Those guys have played quite a bit of blitz. Earlier they've played a match in St. Louis, a showdown in St. Louis, where the blitz portion was won quite convincingly by Hikaru Nakamura. I believe he outscored Aronian 9.5, 6.5 in the blitz games and thereby won the overall event. Aronian has played bishop e7, keeping an eye on the c5 square. The drawback is that the bishop from e7 can't really protect his king all that well. Therefore Nakamura goes knight h2, intending to go queen to h5 and knight to g4, also rook to e3. This looks very dangerous. Aronian played knight to d4, knight g4 is possible. I like calculating powers to calculate queen to h5, but now he's gone knight g4 directly, threatening not so much the pawn on h6, but mainly yet another family fork on f6. So this is troubles for Mr. Levon Aronian. In the meantime, the game between Shirov and Anand has ended. Alexei Shirov lost his game, Vishy Anand won. I'm not 100% sure why, because from the position that I have on my screen here, things don't look all that bad, but I'm sure. Ah no, it ended in a draw, sorry, the result was wrong first. Yeah, this position looks equal, and both decided, let's keep some energy. We're the seniors in this field, let's keep some energy for next round. No such thing for Hikaru Nakamura, no energy concerns, he's crashing through. King g7, knight takes e5, queen to f5, knight g3, defending this knight and making his way over here if he wants to. Queen g5, knight takes f7, and white just wins decisive amounts of material. If we try to count here, it is an exchange that is a rook versus a bishop, and I'm bad at counting pawns, but I believe it's at least 2 pawns, which is just too much, and therefore Levon Aronian resigned. Hikaru Nakamura draws first blood, as he tends to do in blitz events, wins a nice game against Levon Aronian, where I believe things already went wrong outside of the opening, but they really went wrong when Aronian missed this trick. Bishop takes h6 with the point of gh, bishop takes d5. And if queen takes d5, knight f6, picking up the queen, and after that the position was just terrible. Last game has also ended. Kramnik and Giri did not hurt themselves all that much, drew in a quietish game, at least that's what it looked to me. Therefore Nakamura takes an early lead, even though, yeah, the only thing that is at stakes is the drawing of colors for the rapid event starting tomorrow. If you end up in the top 3 in this opening night blitz, you get 3 whites opposed to 3 blacks if you end up in the bottom half. However, it's not that bad because the colors are gonna be reversed for the second blitz event on Monday, which actually counts for the overall standings. So if you get less whites in the rapid games, you get more whites in the blitz games. So it's quite a minor advantage to actually get these extra whites in the rapid. But of course, these players, they also don't like to lose. No one likes to lose, but especially those guys. In order to make it to the top of the chess world, you have to be very competitive, and they don't need that much at stake to try to beat each other up in blitz games. Or at least not to lose blitz games. If we can judge from the first round, Shirov and Anand both seemed happy to get on the scoreboard, and they found a move repetition here to end the game peacefully. While Kramnik and Giri, I'm not sure, we might have missed a lot of the drama here, but it doesn't look that dramatic if we're being honest. It's an equal end game where those pawns will get exchanged for each other. Sooner or later, Kramnik tried to keep this pawn alive, but Giri just has a very stable blockade of it, and as long as white has to defend this pawn, he can't really make any progress. Therefore, even though Kramnik is a pawn up here, his advantage is more academic than anything, because you just can't remove any of these pieces without losing the pawn. Therefore, not that much excitement in that one either. The second round should begin shortly. I'm not sure how long a break the players are going to take, but I believe after sitting around for quite a while watching the opening ceremony, even though they did look like they enjoyed it, as I said, they're eager to play some more chess. Just bring up the games in my little secret system here, the thing we call the live chess viewer, and get rid of the old games. Who needs these games anymore? They're history. Here we go, round number 2. Let's see if they manage to set it up. No input yet there. We see Axel Fritz in the back, who I believe is doing the technical side, the DGT board, all the cabling on scene. And I should know the gentleman standing next to him. I've certainly seen him around, but forgive me, I do not recall it. I believe he is... I shouldn't say anything wrong. I'm not sure. I'm still eagerly waiting for the games to show up in my little tool, because else we're going to have to try to figure out by what's going on the boards, which is going to be tough with this camera angle. Looks a lot less crowded than for the classical music. Maybe it was really just music fans checking out the opening ceremony, and now they've all disappeared. Bunch of blitz games. There we do see Anish Giri and Vishy Anand. Looks like they're being asked to, I don't know, to move, to do something. Levan Aronian can't be happy with his first round game, but he is taking his seat. Whom is he facing? Who's the gentleman in the white shirt? Is that Kramnik? Show your face. No, that's Shirov. Aronian against Shirov. Aronian has won a couple nice games against Shirov. In classical chess, I recall some victories from Vaik Anzei, for example. I'm not sure if they have much of a history in blitz games. We shall find out. I'll do a bit of typing. That's always entertaining to ask where I shall get the games from. There they are. There was no reason to panic. They showed up just in time for the round to begin, it looks like. Giri facing Vishy Anand. We're gonna start focusing on that game. In other news, we have Kramnik with white against Nakamura. That's also gonna be interesting. And Levan Aronian with the white pieces against Alexei Shirov. And since Giri played such a boring opening, I'm tempted to switch to something else. He's played this bishop b5 check. And you get this Maroczy structure, which is very, very solid for white. But Vishy Anand certainly has experience here. He lost a very tough to watch game against Sergei Tivyakov on the black side of this line, and I believe has done even more work on it in order to not let that happen again. I'm curious which setup he's gonna choose here. He's gone for a setup with pawn to e6. There's many different ways you can handle this position. Rook fc8 followed by queen d8 and knight d7 is quite typical. But Vishy plays one move that I think is considered to be good, but might bring up some unpleasant memories because he lost a very similar structure to Magnus Carlsen. That was a great game, by the way. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Carlsen against Anand. I wish I could recall which tournament it was, but it was from this very structure. I have a feeling it was in Vaikanzee, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, it looks like Vishy's done his homework. He's gotten in d5, organized counterplay, and it seems like it's more or less equal. So let's switch to our other game of the round. Well, there's only 3, so I should make 2 game of the round, I guess. We'll get to you, Levon and Alexei. But for now, let's continue the exploits of Vladimir Kramnik in the Torre opening. Kramnik, one of the biggest theoreticians mankind has ever seen, has started to playing all kinds of bishop g5 and bishop f4 openings, even though probably this is not his main repertoire. This is just opening 9 blitz. It's still an interesting trend to notice that even as big a theoretician as Kramnik has started playing all these bishop openings. He's happy to mix it up though. After queen b6 in the opening, he's played bishop d3, leaving this pawn on prise, leading to very, very sharp play. Nakamura decided not to take it directly, but has played knight e4, and after knight bd2, he has taken the bishop on g5, knight takes, and e6. When Kramnik tries his hand at scholar's mate, queen h5 check. No, sorry, not check. Queen h5, threatening the f7 point, always the weakest point in black's position. And after g6, he's gone queen to f3, intending to play queen to f7. It's a little ironic he does this against Nakamura, because Nakamura is the guy, admittedly, a while back, who has dabbled with openings like e4, e5, queen h5, or even e4, c5, queen h5, trying to bring the, what do you call it? It's the scholar's mate, right? I think the scholar's mate back into fashion. Didn't really succeed there, but Kramnik is giving him a bit of his own medicine here with queen h5, g6, queen f3, taking that pawn. Queen c7 defends it, but allows the very awkward queen to f6, hitting this rook on h8, which is not something you would really want. Therefore, I guess he was considering f5 as well, but f5 looks terribly scary too. I'm not sure how it gets punished. Maybe g4, maybe the queen could invade on those squares. Therefore, Nakamura has played queen to c7, but he had to allow queen f6. And Kramnik's offbeat opening seems to have suited him very, very well, and he has a nice position now, as far as I can tell. You can go here, hitting the rook. Rook has to move. And now just grab the pawn, no? I'm not sure. Maybe he's concerned about this knight being caught off guard after, let's say, bishop e7. But to me, this looks good for white. Queen f3, threatening a check here. I don't know, it could be missing something. Maybe this knight gets stuck after knight t7 or something, and it's hard to bring back into the game. But there's always h4, preparing knight g5 or h5. So I like Kramnik's position. He hasn't played queen f6, that's a surprise. He's played h4, not bothering with this obvious move, but instead trying to open the position before black is fully developed by going h5. This is exciting. How does black react? The most natural move would be bishop g7, just to cover the f6 square. But then h5, and I'm not sure if he's going to like what he did. He's played queen to e7 instead, also covering the square and defending against h5, because now the knight is under attack. Kramnik is castle queenside, bishop to g7. And yeah, I believe queen e7 was a very strong move by Nakamura, stopping both h5 and queen f6. And now he's still behind in development, but white doesn't have an easy breakthrough anymore. Therefore, it looks like black might have time to catch up, to go knight d7, h6. Just as I say that, Nakamura does what we're all taught not to do, open the position when you're behind in development. He played e5. However, it has its pluses. It's preparing e4, and he could argue he's not that far behind in development. If white were to take this, you could even make a case for knight d7, intending to recapture with the knight, and all of a sudden all the black pieces are coming out. So Nakamura, not wasting time developing, tries to wrestle the initiative right back from Kramnik, and Kramnik decides to fight fire with fire, goes e4, meeting e5, trying to open the position. One question he has to answer, of course, is what happens after e takes d4, when my guess is he wants to go e takes d5, planning to go rook he1. That's very double-edged too. Black can still castle right here, right now, if he wants to. The other question is the move Nakamura played. He plays h6, asking, okay, all this opening the center is all good and well, but what are you going to do about your knight? You want to go back to h3? And Kramnik says, no, thank you. I wasn't planning to retreat. I'll sacrifice my knight on f7. Fireworks in this game. Knight f7, queen g3. And white only has one pawn for the piece, so I have a hard time believing what he's doing is correct. But it's certainly fun. E takes d4, e takes d5 has been played. Threatening bishop takes g6. But Nakamura makes good use of the rules. He's aware he can still castle, which parries that threat. And meet bishop takes g6 with queen anywhere. The greediest way would be to just take on f2. And I believe black is just winning now. There was, an exciting battle, but Hikaru Nakamura, as usual, kept his cool in the complications out of a very dangerous opening. And now he's punishing Kramnik for entertaining us too much. It's fine to entertain us, Vladimir, but you gotta keep your pieces. You can't give a guy like Nakamura a full piece. He's gonna take it and not give it back. Yeah, I think it's just resigns. His bishop is coming to f5. Bishop takes g6. Looks like the only try. But then just queen takes f2. Bishop g6 is on the board. But yeah, I'd be surprised if Nakamura didn't take on f2 when I don't see any way out for white at all. Yeah, queen f2 has been played as well. Nothing you can do about it. You can exchange queens, but that's pretty much the equivalent of resigning. When if you try to keep them on the board, d3 is the only legal square. But now there's no longer any threats. You could even take on c3. You could go bishop f5 to simplify. It just doesn't seem to work. Let's see what happened. Kramnik did take on f2, which I said was same thing as resigning. He seems to want to keep the game going, hopes all his developed pieces might make a difference, but he doesn't have enough pieces. There on camera we see that the Anand game against Giri has ended. I believe Giri got checkmated in the middle of the board. We're gonna get to that in a second. While Hikaru Nakamura takes some more of Kramnik's pawns, and Kramnik is still trying to make something happen with minimal resources here, but he just doesn't have enough firepower to get to the black king. Knight d6, knight c6, now knight to e8. Let me show this. Knight to e8, there's not really any threat, so black could even go bishop e5 and then remove the king. Therefore Kramnik tries bishop f5, hoping for bishop takes f5, knight takes f5, and this bishop on g7 is trapped. Bad news for him is here he is probably still lost after the move king f7. If rook g7, king f6, attacking both these guys, and if knight takes g7, rook g8. In the game, something similar occurred, not king to f7, but king h8, but the trick is the same. If rook g7, rook f8, and if knight g7, then rook to g8, pinning this knight. Therefore Kramnik tried rook g6 instead. But yeah, you just don't have enough pieces. Bishop f8, cd, rook e8. In this position, one can resign with a pretty clear conscience, because white doesn't even have a pawn for the piece. Therefore, the game is very much over, in my opinion. This is the position currently on board. Nakamura wastes no time collecting even more material. And Kramnik seems to hope for a last-minute miracle, but I don't expect this to happen. Rook f7, any move wins. Bishop takes b2. He really is merciless, just chopping off one pawn after the other. White could go knight h6, but doesn't help. Then black just exchanges rooks. Could take on b7, but then black takes the knight. Therefore, Kramnik tries h5. Nakamura just retreats his bishop all the way to g7, saying, you know what, I just wanted to take your pawn. You don't have a threat. Rook g7 doesn't work. I don't even want to give you the h6 pawn. King e3, rook e4 check. King d2. Rook back to f4. At least some repeating of moves now. Rook f1, king to e2. The problem is it runs into rook f5, followed by knight to d4. Therefore, there still is no hope. Kramnik tries king d2, knight to e5. What can I tell you that you don't already know? There he goes now. Vladimir Kramnik has seen enough, resigns his game. That leaves us with the game Aronian against Shirov, where Levon Aronian is trying to defend the position, a queen down, he's trying to build a fortress, and I believe he has managed to do so with his rook and his bishop controlling any inroads into his position. Shirov tries to put him into Zugzwang here, bishop c8, the only move that doesn't lose material. The rook couldn't move, the king couldn't move without losing the rook. And now after king h4, bishop h3 once again is the only move that keeps white in the game. That seems to be good enough. I don't see how black can break down this fortress, because it's hard to control all the squares for this bishop on this diagonal. For example, let's say you play queen c6, trying to stop the bishop from going there. Then the bishop could go to f5. Now it goes back to h3. After king h5, it has the f5 square again. Very hard to take all these squares, because you gotta leave the rook pinned as well. King h4, Shirov keeps trying, but once again, this square is available. And king g5, maybe he's managed now. Maybe that's, yeah, the setup I missed. He's triangulated, now it is Zugzwang, and this bishop doesn't have a square. Therefore, Aronian resigns. Very nice finish by Shirov, because, yeah, you can try it out for yourself. Any move you make loses material. This move can't rook, this rook can't move. And if the king moves, you take the rook. If the bishop moves, wherever it goes, we take it. Very nice technique by Shirov, and I was wrong. It was not a fortress, it was more of an illusion. We haven't looked much at the Giri Anand game, but the final position says it all. This king can't retreat to the second rank. It has to go forward, and it will meet his maker somewhere deep into the enemy camp. Something like this, for example. Therefore, Giri resigned. And Vishy Anand, of course, known as one of the greatest blitz players in history, used to be completely dominant in any blitz and rapid event pretty much throughout the 90s and early 2000s. His dominance is no longer there, but this guy can play blitz. He's not afraid of a fast time control. So where does it leave us? It leaves Hikaru Nakamura in front with 2 out of 2. Vishy Anand, 1.5 out of 2. Alexei Shirov, 1.5 out of 2. Levon Aronian, 0 out of 2. And Anish Giri, half out of 2. How hard can it be to keep track of 6 players after 2 rounds? I hope that was correct. But it seems like it is. I'll bring up the games for next round. Sounds like there's some fireworks outside. I'm not in Zurich, so this is not part of the celebrations. But I'm not sure what holiday I missed. It's not New Year, it's not Valentine's Day. I don't know why there's fireworks. Doesn't make any sense. So, games for next round are there. Oops, didn't mean to switch that one. I meant to go here so we can watch on full screen how the players get their coffee. There we see Hikaru Nakamura facing Anish Giri. 2 of the players that are gonna meet in the candidates tournament starting next March and next month, which will be used to find out the challenger of Magnus Carlsen. Giri is gonna play there, Nakamura is gonna play there. Vladimir Kramnik, whom we see there, is not gonna play there. He was one of the favorites to get a wild card, but the wild card went to Levon Aronian, who of course is also active today. And Vishy Anand is also playing as the loser of the last World Championship match. So 4 of the 6 players from Zurich are just warming up for the candidates. This, apart from the World Championship match, in my opinion, the biggest event that we're gonna have in the chess year 2016. Olympiad is different, but from the top level events, World Championship match and the candidates are the 2 big ones to look forward to, and I can't wait for the candidates to start. So who do we have this round? We have Alexei Shirov with white against Vladimir Kramnik. Those 2 have a bit of history. Of course, they played, when was it, 99, 98 or 99? A qualification match for the rights to meet Garry Kasparov, which Alexei Shirov, to many people's surprise, won. But then, I don't know, I'm no expert on that story. What I do know is the Kasparov-Shirov match never happened, and Vladimir Kramnik got to play Garry Kasparov in 2000 and took the world champion title from him. But yeah, those guys have been around and have played that match, and on many other occasions. I believe overall Kramnik has a good score, but he did lose that huge match. Levon Aronian and Vishy Anand are also very familiar with each other. Aronian used to have an absolutely dominating score against Vishy Anand. It has changed a bit over the last couple of years. Vishy's won his share in last year's candidates. A fantastic martial game. He won a fantastic semi-Slav game in Vaikanze. And today they are playing a fantastic Rookie 1 Berlin, one of the more symmetrical lines out there. Anand against Aronian, d4, d5. White is fishing for a small advantage in these lines because of the slightly clumsy placement of the knight on f5, which would rather be somewhere else watching TV instead of standing on f5 where it can't do that much. It is a rocky solid line for white, but it also is not big problems for black. In Shirov against Kramnik, we have another line of the Berlin. It's very similar though. It's the line you normally get if instead of knight f5, as we've seen. Stop this. Program won't stop it. Instead of knight f5, black takes on e5. And this is also a theoretical line. Rookie 2 looks very funny, but it has some subtle points compared to Rookie 1, which I wish I understood, but I really don't. I guess in some lines you can use the e-file to double rooks or put the queen there. Rookie 2, knight f6 has been played by Kramnik, who of course is a leading expert on all these things. Knight f6, queen f6, d4 and b6, trying to fianchetto the bishop. And once again, white is trying to find a little something in an almost symmetrical position, even though in this position I really don't see the appeal of white's play. Bishop b7 or bishop a6 are coming, and to me it looks like this is totally equal. Shirov played queen d3, stopping bishop a6 at least, but allowing bishop b7. And actually after bishop b7 followed by rook e8, well, it's crazy to say black is better, but I'd at the very least argue that black has solved all his problems. Bishop d2, rook to e8, rook to e1, and yeah, this is not that exciting. So let's go to our third game. Nakamura against Giri, and here we have a very different opening. Giri likes to play all kinds of Sicilians. He's a big expert on most openings actually, especially on e4, e5, but he's played a lot of Taimanovs and he's played a lot of Naidovs recently. So here he goes for the Taimanov after e6, he wants to take in queen c7. Instead Nakamura goes g3, a line that Magnus Carlsen likes to play, but I think Carlsen always goes d4 here. Nakamura allowed d4, which looks very brazen. And after queen e2 check, I'm not sure if the board has not updated or if Giri really is thinking for like 2 minutes here how to react to this check. I would probably block it by going bishop e7. I guess what bothers him is that then after knight e4 this pawn is on crease. So he's played bishop to e6 instead. Well, I think it transposes knight e4 and now bishop e7. Nakamura played d3 and to me it looks like black should be fine, but you have to be a little careful. If you go knight to f6, I guess he's concerned about knight jumps to g5, therefore he had to waste the tempo on playing h6, stopping those castles, and now knight f6, when we shall see if Nakamura finds some creative way to stop Giri from finishing his development, because if Giri manages to do that, he's gonna be in very good shape. Nakamura took on f6, and after bishop takes, he went bishop to h3, hitting the bishop on e6, which is pinned, thereby trying to use this half a tempo he gained earlier because black had to play h6. When things aren't easy for Anish Giri. If you go queen e7, let's say, then white can take on e6 and at least play a slightly better endgame, because this pawn is a little weak and this knight has a very nice eternal square on e4. So it's not the end of the world by any means, but white is a little better here. Therefore, looks like Nakamura once again managed to at least get a fresh position out of the opening, maybe confuse Giri a little bit. Bishop h3, queen d5, Giri doesn't want to trade queens, wants to stay as active as possible. Bishop e6, fe, rook to e1, and he castled, giving up this pawn. What do you get for the pawn though? Maybe there was nothing else he could do, but if you just take. Takes. I don't see any tricks. Maybe he wants knight to b4, hitting this guy. Yeah, I guess that's his intention. No, even here, I'm not sure if this really works well. bishop d2, knight takes, rook c1, hitting this knight. If knight b4, at the very least white can take with a pleasant position because after cb. This rook has the c file, the black pawns are a little weak. I like Nakamura's position. I think he's contemplating here whether he wants to take on e6 or if he wants to play a quiet move like bishop d2, also with a small edge. But to me it looks like he can just take the pawn. And yeah, he's done it. He has grabbed the pawn, rook takes e6, probably calculated this knight b4, bishop d2 line. Ah no, he went knight b4, knight e1. He's greedy. He doesn't want to give up the c2 pawn, even if it gave him a huge lead in development. And knight e1 might be an even better move. Just defending this, preparing bishop d2. Very hard for me to see how white has any problems here or how black has any compensation for his pawn. We're gonna switch to Anand Aronian because exciting things have happened after h4, h6 in the symmetrical structure. Vishy Anand has sacrificed a knight. Knight takes g5, fg, queen h5. Oh no, sorry, not queen h5, knight e5 first. Hitting the queen, queen d8, and now queen to h5. He's trying to checkmate his world-class opponent, Levan Aronian. And is it checkmate? What's the threat? Threat is queen takes g5 first and foremost. Black has to defend against that. He could do so by moving this knight probably here, and I think he's done that. This allows white to give a check on g6, which is not all that pleasant, but maybe it's not the end of the world either. Queen g6, I don't think you can step onto the h file. Just looks too dangerous. If a rook ever were to make it here, even though it's not a legal move to castle this way and end up with the rook on h1, this just looks too scary. Therefore, I believe he would have to go knight g7, blocking that check. When I can't see any breakthrough for white. Bishop f5 is a threat. To me it looks like black is okay, but we'll see what Vishy has in mind. He has played knight g4. Planning to go queen g6 and knight f6 check, but it feels slow. If knight g7 now, for example. I don't know. Queen e7. Can we trust Vishy, or is he bluffing here? Queen e7, then he can give the check. Queen e7, queen g6. And if queen g7, that was my plan, then white just takes on e6. So that's not the brightest of ideas. But what about this move? If queen g6, yeah, he's played knight g7. If queen g6, it looks like you can just take the knight. Knight f6 is not yet possible, so knight h6 check comes to mind. But then king h7. The queen is under attack. And if it has to retreat, well, it has to keep touch with the knight, so it probably has to go to some funny square like h1. Which looks cute. This battery is always very effective, and there are some knight jumps threatened. But I'm not sure if it really works. Vishy instead of the check has gone queen h3 back. But now black at the very least can take on g4. And that's what Levan does. Bishop takes g4, getting rid of the dangerous knight. I believe Anand's idea is to have a Zwischenschach, intermediate check on d5. Because if he takes here, then just c6 and black is a piece up. So that can't be it. Oh, he did take. Wow. I thought he wanted to take here. Bishop takes d5 and then recapture. But maybe he didn't like knight f7 when he has to take here as well and thought it was just not enough. Therefore he took. But now Aronian exchanges rooks and plays c6. When I have a hard time believing that white can justify being a whole piece down here. Black always has this other knight to come to f7, aid the defense. And kudos to Vishy for sacrificing this knight for an attack, but it looks like Aronian has fought it off and now has pretty much a winning position. Vishy's trying to mix it, throwing his last resources, frank the f-pawn, clawed the c-pawn into the game. But I think Aronian is defending quite easily against all of this. Now the queens had to be exchanged. Black is a piece up. Bishop takes c6, rook d8. Yeah, this is hopeless. The knights will slowly but surely re-enter and decide the game. Rook e5 is on the board. Knight f7. Rook e7, he takes the pawn. And black only has 2 pawns left, so he has to be a little careful that not all pawns disappear, but I don't see how white can get to all of them without these knights jumping into action as they do now. Yeah. It is completely hopeless. Therefore, Vichy resigns with both these knights in his face. There's just no way to continue the game. Let's say bishop b5, rook d2 check, king e1, knight f3, king f1, knight takes g3. Would be a cute checkmate, but you don't have to wait for that if you're Vichy Anand. Giri Nakamura game also seems to have ended, and Hikaru Nakamura keeps crushing everything in his path. This time it's Anish Giri, so Nakamura moves into 3 out of 3, 100% score. Seems very eager to show who's boss at a fast time control here. Very, very early on, while the last game, Shirov against Kramnik, has ended in a draw, if I'm right interpreting that handshake and the equal amount of bishops and pawns on the board. So after 3 rounds, I've completely lost track of the scores. What I do know is that Hikaru Nakamura has won every game he's played. And I believe no one else... Oh no, that's not true. Shirov has 2 out of 3. Let's figure that out. Nakamura 3 out of 3. Shirov 2 out of 3. Anand 50%. Levon Aronian 1 out of 3. Anish Giri not having a great tournament so far. Half out of 3. And Vladimir Kramnik also 1 out of 3. Oops, I always switch to myself when I mean to switch to the players. Is that a Freudian thing? Could very well be. So we're already more than halfway through. Time flies when you're watching Blitz. 3 rounds down, 2 to go. But this is just the warm-up for the Zurich Chess Classic. Tomorrow we're going to have 2 rapid games. Sunday we're going to have 2 rapid games. On Monday we're going to have another one. And then the Blitz tournament, if I'm informed correctly. So by all means, come back tomorrow at 3 p.m. to watch more action from Zurich with the time control. The sponsor of the event, Oleg Skvortsov, is very eager to establish 40 minutes plus 10 seconds per game, which is interesting. Like, we're gonna have more time to talk about it tomorrow, but I'm very intrigued and I can't decide which side I want to choose on these proposals to speed up the time controls. That 6 hours is too long for a chess game. We need it to be like 2 hours, like a football game, like a basketball game. There is something to be said for it, and I believe the level of play would still be quite high. Then again, I quite enjoy having a long chess tournament, 5-6 hours going on, and being able to follow at my own pace, not having to be focused on it all the time. But yeah, it's interesting. What I personally think shouldn't be done is to have double rounds, even with this very short time control. Like, it's fine in Zurich, but if we use it as for, let's say, World Championship match, I don't want to see 2 games per day. And it's the same like in basketball. Chess is tough, especially if the players have to prepare for every game. Of course, not as physically taxing as physical sport, but it costs a lot of energy to prepare for the games, to motivate for it. So I would say then, if we're gonna do it, let's only have 2 hours of chess per day. Like a football game, they don't play back-to-back football or basketball matches the same day. I don't like double rounds, is what I'm trying to say. But I do like them here for Zurich, because tomorrow we're gonna have more excitement and plenty of chess to talk about. Starts at 3, I believe, the first round of the rapid, and at 6, the second. I should look that up. Should probably look at it before, but I think I'm right. We'll see how it goes. Who is gonna win this last stop before the candidates? If it's gonna be one of the candidates, or maybe Vladimir Kramnik, who's trying not to... No, who doesn't have any opening ideas to hide, is what I'm trying to say. He might be the one who can play the most freely, doesn't have to worry about keeping his energy, keeping his secrets for the candidates. So he could very much be a factor here. Not that he can't be a factor in any tournament in the world, because he is the world number 2, Vladimir Kramnik, at age 40. Still towers as the only 2800 player, except for Magnus Carlsen. The other eternal favorite, at least recently, when Magnus Carlsen is not in the event, is Hikaru Nakamura, who's won the event last year in a dramatic Blitz tiebreak for many reasons against Vichy Anand. And especially with the fast time controls, we've seen it in the first 3 games, Nakamura is always incredibly dangerous. But for this game, we have a meeting between 2 old rivals and old friends, or new friends, but they've been very friendly for a while. We do have Vladimir Kramnik against Vishy Anand, the meeting of the world champions there. Having a little chat. How did you like the music earlier? Do you like sparkling water or still water? Do we have a choice here, or do we have to take the sparkling? I believe that's what they're discussing, but I don't have any audio actually on my feed, so I'm making stuff up. So which game shall we choose for next round? I'm tempted to go with Kramnik Anand. So legends, gotta stick with the legends. Let's have a look at how it starts at the very least for them. And Kramnik keeps doing this goofy opening. 3 bishop g5, knight e4, bishop h4. Vishy goes bishop f5. c5 is also a move here, but bishop f5, very natural development. e3, c6. So Vishy, as opposed to Nakamura, doesn't bring his queen out very early. c6, knight b2. Let's see if he does it now. No, he's playing it a lot more solidly. Doesn't try to punish Kramnik for his early bishop adventures. He just wants to bring his pieces out. Put the knight here. Go e6. See what happens. But yeah, bishop d3 is asking some questions. He would love to play e6 immediately. But then bishop takes d8 would come. So now Vishy decides, you know what, I need to go e6. So I don't really want to take your pawn, but I will get my queen out of the way. He's done that. Kramnik is offered the pawn on b2. But Vishy said, no thanks, I just wanted to go e6 without losing my queen on d8. That was the whole point. Kramnik took on e4. When, once again, things become very sharp very early. D takes e4. Now he's played knight to c4. My guess is if the queen goes to a6, he wants to use the other knight to defend it. And the classical player, Vladimir Kramnik, keeps surprising us with, I think, fresh ideas. I think he's looked at all this stuff and he knows what he's doing in all these openings. And maybe he just thought, you know what, I've exhausted the field of d4, c4 openings. I need something else. Let's look at all the bishop openings. So there is a new field to study where I can still surprise my opponents and have Vishy Anand, who also knows everything about everything, in deep thought on move number 10. Don't see that all that often. Vishy's trying to figure out where to put his queen. a6 looks like an obvious choice, and yeah, he's gone to a6, knight f to d2. And we shall see. b5. b5, sort of a committal move, locking his queen in on a6 a bit. Long-term black is fine, but he still has to finish his development, and it's not that easy, because after bishop e7, which has been played, white can exchange it, and the king has to stay in the center. And now Kramnik could go... he's gone knight b3, which looks very tempting. I don't know. I don't trust Vishy's position. I'd be tempted to play queen e1 to give a check here. Yeah, that's what he's done. This looks highly unpleasant. Kramnik keeps getting interesting positions. I'm not sure if his position against Nakamura earlier was good, but was certainly interesting. And keeps putting pressure with his newly prepared love, the move 3 bishop g5, which really, normally if you see someone play this, or if you saw someone play this a couple of years back, you thought, okay, this guy has to be a bit of a putzer. I'll go knight e4 with tempo. You can't even challenge this knight on e4 anymore. But I might have to rethink my opinion on that opening. Queen b4 check, king e8, and yeah, not easy to get such a position against Vishy Anand out of any opening. I'm not sure how bad things are for Vishy, but it certainly doesn't look pleasant. You can't get in c5, Kramnik can just go rook d1, challenge the d file, try to put something on d6, could also go a4, trying to create some tension here. White is certainly a bit better. He's played rook f d1. And I guess Vishy's going to try to exchange things off. But even this, takes, rook to d8, for example. Rook takes, it's still an unpleasant position. And probably that's why Anand has not, in fact, done that. He's played a5, pushing the queen away from b4. Queen retreated to c3, and now he's played rook to d5. Saying, you know what, we can trade rooks, but on my terms. If you want to exchange, you're going to have to improve my pawn structure along the way. I also want to keep an eye on the c5 square. And now it's Kramnik's turn to think. I don't really see anything better than taking on d5, to be honest with you. Rook takes d5. I guess e takes d5. Now put this knight into c5. And I still prefer white, because this knight is very much untouchable. And yeah, Kramnik did take on d5, if my eyes are correct, and Vichy played c takes d5 instead. Keeping the double pawns, but fighting against knight c5, because now knight c5 can be met with rook c8. Did Kramnik play a3? I think he played a3. I believe I even understand it. He wants to go knight c5 and then be able to defend that knight on c5 by going b4. I think Kramnik putting some pressure here on his historic rival. Is that fair? I think so. In my mind, they're contemporaries. I know Vichy is a bit older, but their primes clashed. A lot of it clashed with Garry Kasparov too. Vichy lost to Kasparov in '95, then Kramnik managed to defeat him in London 2000. And here they are, seasoned veterans in their own right now. I should stop saying that. They're barely older than me, but that's where the chess world is going. Vichy is trying to get his king out of the way. Played h5. He understood he has to live with his knight, but he thinks, if I can get my king into safety, this knight is not going to win the game by itself. Now after queen to d4, maybe... I was going to say b4 first, but then I spotted that after a4 I'm losing material. So the idea of b4 was to fight against white going b4. Another way to do that could be a4. So if white goes b4, we can take en passant. But I'm not sure how much that helps, because there's always going to be a pawn here. Vichy after long thought goes rook c8, b4, a4, trying to keep the position closed. He does not want any part of a takes b, and a white rook doing damage on the a file. So rook c8, b4, a4 on the board. I don't know, I'd still prefer white, because this bishop finds it very hard to enter any battle on the queen side, even though it's going to be up to Kramnik how to create any action on the queen side, which is fairly locked up now. And therefore Kramnik says, you know what, I can't beat you on the queen side, I'm going to switch my attention to the king side. I'll go rook f1, hint at f3 or f4 at the very least, and see what you want to do about it. But maybe black is fine, maybe I'm just being blinded by this knight. f3 has been played, e takes f. If rook takes, which looks normal, then these pawns are kind of very weak long term, so maybe you have to take with the pawn. Let's see what the world champion instinct says here. I'm honestly not sure. I think you might have to take with the pawn. And Kramnik is weighing it. No, he does take with the rook. Interesting. Saying it's not that important. You can't really attack my pawns. I want my rook active on the half-open f-file. Queen e7 played by Vichy. King h2, rook c7. Just carefully defending all his weaknesses. And it doesn't look like there's any inroads into the black position from here on. I'm not sure if black is actually better and can start playing for a win, but he's certainly safe. And therefore the cameraman realizes Anand is out of trouble. Let's switch to Giri Aronian, and I shall follow his movements and see how they do. Even though they've blocked the board, not with one, but with two water bottles. It's an interesting position, but we won't stay here for very long because... no, now we have a choice. Then we can stay. I was going to say because the cameraman left and I just wanted to follow him around. I have no idea who's better and why. It looks equal, doesn't it? It's a typical Slav structure. White has the two bishops, but black doesn't really have any bad pieces. He's exchanged his quote-unquote bad bishop. And this knight can go to c6, controlling squares on the queen side. Bishop b5 is directed against knight c6. He already wants to simplify and to take one of those knights, but I don't think he's going to be able to. Knight c7 followed by a6, knight c6. Actually, yeah, this bishop had to retreat, understood. It wasn't doing all that much on b5. And I quite like black's position here. White is also a little tied up on the king side. He has to keep an eye on the h2 pawn. Giri's played bishop b1, but I think Aronian is doing very well. We're going to go to Nakamura Shirov, the sole leader, Hikaru Nakamura, 3 out of 3, and on his way to his 4th point, he did manage to take a pawn from Alexei Shirov, is a pawn up. Not going to be easy to convert this, because the b pawn is a target and it's very hard to advance, while I don't think you can queen the c pawn by itself, but certainly Nakamura the one pulling the punches here. Rook d8 check has been played, king h7, one pair of rooks exchanged, and this rook replaces his brother that was just exchanged for the black rook to defend the b3 pawn. Rook d3, queen c2, Shirov tries to stay as active as possible, tries to stop these pawns from advancing. And now he's even hinting at some counterplay with rook to a2. But it gives white a chance, which frankly I missed it for a sec, to just take it. And after queen a8, queen d3, queen f3 to come back. When I think these pawns will have an easier time advancing. Yeah, there he goes, queen f3. Without rooks on the board. Now c5, put the pawn on c6. And I'm not sure. I wouldn't even be that surprised if Shirov just missed the option of queen takes a8. Because strategically, I don't think it's a good idea to exchange these rooks. Nakamura in his element. Now he's put his queen in attacking position to support the pawns. He's willing to give up this pawn on f4. Going bishop g3. And after the queen moves, I think he's just gonna push forward. Yeah, that's what he's done. Played c6. There he goes. g5, Shirov looking to create counterplay. But I'm not sure he will be in time. c7 should win, even though it's tough to allow this gh4. Therefore, Nakamura took on g5, h4, bishop to b8. He wants to keep this diagonal under control, but has he done this correctly? Doesn't Shirov have counterplay now? Bishop g7, he wants to give a check here. I don't know, looks like Shirov's fighting back. Queen b6, bishop e5 check. Takes, don't go to h3, because then queen g3 is checkmate. You don't want that to happen. King h1, queen e1, is this a perpetual? Ah no, that's queen g1, my apologies. But Shirov takes a pawn on b4. Queen c1, supporting the c pawn. It's too fast for me to follow, too fast, too furious, but it looks like Shirov has managed to more or less equalize. He's gotten rid of both the passed pawns, and Nakamura, tournament situation-wise, he could happily give a perpetual and be safely in the first half with 3.5 points out of 4 games. Even if he lost the first, he would be fine. But he wants to win every game. We can see he's shaking his head. He's not happy repeating moves here. But it doesn't look like he has anything much better. Queen g6, and yeah, draw agreed indeed. That leaves us with Anish Giri and Levan Aronian, because Kramnik Anand has ended in a draw as well in a Queen's Endgame. So let's see if Levan Aronian manages to defeat Anish Giri. A nice position earlier. It's chaos. Queen d8 check, king to g7. The bishop retreats all the way to e4. And once again, black has a passed pawn, but has to keep an eye on his own king. Aronian nicely coordinating his pieces. Queen e3, knight d2, also clearing the way for this. Queen e2 check, king g1, and yeah, he goes back to e3 because the queen is perfectly placed here, defending this pawn. Bishop e4 in order to not let this pawn advance, but Aronian just took it, pushed b2, and I think he's just winning because of the queen e4. He's going to get a new queen on b1, and therefore Anish Giri resigned. So 4 games down, let's have a look at the standings. Hikaru Nakamura, 3.5 out of 4. Alexei Shirov, 2.5 out of 4. Holding himself very, very well in this company, which he's no longer so used to because he hasn't played these guys in a while. But he's been doing well. Levan Aronian back to 50% after his win, 2 out of 4. Vishy Anand also 2 out of 4. Vladimir Kramnik, 1.5 out of 4. And Anish Giri, not looking at his sharpest. Maybe it was too much classical music for him the hour before. It dulled his senses, so he has 0.5 out of 4. And right now, as mentioned, the question is who finishes in the top 3 to get an extra white in the Rapids. Nakamura has already gained that ticket. He can't be caught by anybody except Shirov, so he certainly is in the top 3. And the question is, will Aronian, Anand or Kramnik get that 3rd spot? Alexei Shirov with 2.5 out of 4 is probably in, but things could still go wrong. I wish I had any clue about math, but let's say Shirov loses last round and Aronian and Anand win, then Shirov is out. Kramnik probably still has a mathematical chance to get in there as well, but we will be wiser after next round. I also have no idea what happens if 2 players have the same score. Let's say Aronian and Anand finished shared third on 2.5 out of 5. I don't know what happens then. I guess it's some Sonneborn-Berger system or something in place. Not 100% sure. There we see the arbiters rearranging the pieces. Chess players nowadays don't even set up the pieces after they're done. But I think they're not allowed to. Normally for the DGT stuff you're always told, no, don't touch anything. Just put the kings in the middle so the system understands what happened. Don't touch any pieces, you will confuse everybody. Let's put these efforts on full screen while I bring up the next round in my little system. This bottle collection is growing on the table. Oh no, it's still 2 bottles in the glass. Nothing really changed. Last game of the day already. 5 games fly by very, very quickly. Hikaru Nakamura once again showing why he is the #1 in the Blitz rating list, has been crushing the field, has 3.5 out of 4. But the question, who gains the extra white, which is not such a big advantage as I mentioned earlier, but who finishes in the top 3 is still very much open. So we're gonna focus on the result in the 5th and last round of the day to see who can reach their goal, if they even cared. But most people prefer having white over black. So who can finish in this top 3? Who can join Hikaru Nakamura? There we see. I know this gentleman, but I'm terrible with names. And I don't mean Karpov. Karpov is sitting there in the 2nd rank. I mean the guy taking pictures. I should get out more often. You don't meet that many people in the Chess24 studios in Hamburg, so I don't really know anybody anymore. There we see Vichy. I do know Vichy. Doesn't seem happy and he's probably calculating what happens. Is a draw good enough for me or do I need to push here to get that extra white? Do I have time to get a fresh water before the game starts? Looks like he does because, yeah, there is Nakamura only just arriving. Takes a seat with the black pieces against Vichy. Brief handshake, those two, yeah. The co-winners of last year, then they had this dramatic tie-break event which Hikaru Nakamura won. There was some controversy or at least some discussion about the rules, how many games played and so on. But Nakamura won Zurich 2015 in the tie-breaks and they're both back trying to make another run at it. In the background, by the way, you can see Viktor Korchnoi there sitting in the 2nd rank next to his wife. Very good to see him around. Watching the action, and I'm sure he has some opinions about what these putzers are doing in Blitz. Where's the other players? Oh, there. People in the audience are signing them. That's the way to go. Take a seat. Can't wait all day. It's Friday night. What do you think you're doing? There is Anish Giri, not his finest event. Shirov is very confused by the glasses on the table. He's asking Anish, are those your backup glasses? Did someone leave them there? What's going on? I'm not sure. Nakamura does not... I think I've seen him wear glasses. He might have glasses. Maybe those are Hikaru's glasses lying on that other table. We'll find out. Vichy's wearing his, so it's unlikely he's brought a pair of backup glasses. And it looks like the clocks are set. Nakamura is thinking, what do I do? If this guy plays e4, do I play some goofy opening or do I play the Berlin, play e4, e5? Nah, you know what? I'll go with the Sicilian. Why not spice it up? I'm already qualified. Let's make it a fun game against Vichy. Technical problems. Clock keeps getting reconnected. Not sure. So we have this game, and then we have one game that's already started. Shirov against Giri. 3rd game is Levan Aronian with white against Vladimir Kramnik. That's a big game for the standings because if Kramnik wins that one, he overtakes... No, yeah, if Kramnik wins that one, he overtakes Aronian. Anish Giri is out of contention against Alexei Shirov. Theoretical line here on the board, h3, queen b6. Giri won a very nice game here against whom was it? It was in the first round against Andorra of the Olympiad. The only Andorrian grandmaster, help me out, I'm blanking on the name. But anyway, Anish won a nice game here, rook d8, I think it was still this. White played a little too slowly. Shirov goes bishop f1, doesn't want any part of the d4 business in the center. And Anish can already go for d5 if he so chooses, and he probably will. Anyway, Anish can't qualify anymore, so we're gonna ignore him for today. We're gonna stop ignoring him tomorrow. It's just a bit of being passive-aggressive. But for now, we're gonna focus on Aronian Kramnik because the winner of this game gains his extra white. I like Aronian's position, but I like most positions where white has a bishop on g2 and black has weak pawns. That's not the most sophisticated of assessments. However, long term, if white manages to get control of this square, this can be a classic squeeze in the style of Rubinstein, who played some model games here with his blockade against the hanging pawns, we call them, even though they're not really hanging, so it's a little misleading. But they could be long-term weaknesses, especially the one on c6. Kramnik already contemplating here if he has to do something drastic, and he does. He goes c5, which looks like it's losing material. White can go knight c3, the queen goes somewhere, we take here, bishop takes, and something takes d5, I guess. Knight takes. Doesn't look very nice for black, but Kramnik probably didn't like his position, and it doesn't look like he's on the way to winning his game. Now let's stay with those guys. I'll keep you posted if anything dramatic happens in the Vichy game. For now, it's a position with all pieces on the board, one pair of pawns exchanged, where I don't think Vichy has any problems, at the very least. I'm not sure if he's better, but I'm going to say it diplomatically because I don't know any better. c5, Levon in deep thought here. Both these guys also wearing their glasses, so will we ever know who left their glasses on Shirov's board? I think we might never find out. Levon's still thinking here. Why doesn't he blitz out knight c3? I'm very surprised by that, but there must be other options that intrigue him. Maybe he's wondering, can't I just take and take? Rook fd8 and play e4, which also looks very legit. But no, he's played knight c3, queen to a5, and taken on f6 and d5. Kramnik went queen takes a2, so it didn't technically win material, but after knight takes f6, gf, black now does have a very weak king. Levon played bishop d5, protecting his pawn on e4, on b3, and preparing to go e4. Let's say rook fd8, he wants to go e4. Also clearing the way for his queen to enter the action on the queen side, on the king side. Aronian's better against Kramnik, and Kramnik probably would have to win that game in order to overtake him, so it doesn't look like that. Let's move to Anand Nakamura. Board full of pieces. I like Vichy's position at first sight because the black pieces look a little loose, and he's managed to block this bishop out of the game on b7 by going c5. He just took on a5. And yeah, if b takes a5, the black position is just horrible. Something like bishop c4 and bad things will happen. So probably black has to try to mix it by going b takes c5. That's what Nakamura did. D takes c5, but now this a-pawn stays alive and could come to a6 one day. Queen a7, I guess you go queen a3 to defend both of your pawns on c5 and on a5. Oh, I'm so sorry. I should probably have given you guys a little board, but sometimes it's fun to just look at the big board as well. So here we go. Anand has played bishop c4, not queen to a3. A little surprised by that. And let's see how Nakamura reacts. He could take on a5, but then bishop takes e6, f takes e6, and bishop to d4, for example, exposing these ugly weaknesses on the e-file. Don't look very nice, therefore he did not take it. He's gone knight to c7. But this position just looks bad. He's a pawn down and his king is a little weakened. For example, Vichy took on d8. I was going to say, for example, queen a3, but Vichy just swaps down, which is probably also very good, making use of the fact that the queen is far away from the action. No, Nakamura's in trouble, and that's a big point for Vichy if he manages to convert this, because even though Nakamura still qualifies, Vichy would then move to 3 out of 5, which would more or less ensure him that he also gains that extra white game. Let's see if he can pull it off. I don't see a good move for black. If rook takes d1, you can probably even take with the queen. I think that's his point, because then bishop takes c3. There's queen to d8 check, king g7, and queen takes c7, winning the piece back and introducing the very nasty threat of going a6, picking up the piece. So black just can't do that. And what else can you do? Hikaru just played rook to e8, vacating the d file because he understood he can't allow this. But this also looks terrible. Now rook d7 is very much an option. Rook d7, I guess black can still take on a5 and hope to survive. Even though even this looks bad with all these clumsy pieces here. But there might be something stronger than rook d7. Let's see what Vichy comes up with. Some knight g5 maybe targeting this pawn. Yeah, there he goes, knight g5, e6. And now rook d7 with even stronger effect because the pawn on f7 is on prise as well. Queen takes a5 has been played. c3 is hanging. You might have to take a time out to either remove this knight. That's the first move that comes to mind, knight e4, trying to jump in here. And yeah, black's position just looks very, very bad. Yeah, Vichy's played knight e4. I don't think there's any defense. The white pieces are just too active and these pieces are just too far away from the action. There might be even some sneaky threats like bishop d2, distracting the queen from the defense of the c7 knight. But there's just the pure number of threats. Knight d6, knight f7, rook f7, bishop d2. It's too much to cope with. Bishop c8 has been played, I guess forcing rook takes a7, even though it looks like Vichy's thinking about bishop d2. We'll see which one he decides on. No, he's... What are you going to do, Vichy? Yeah, he's taken on f7, and after h6, he has to find a way to finish it. Nakamura does not go down quietly. He's trying to distract his knight from the defense of the rook, and you have to find a way to punish black for his sins. Rook takes g7, for example, should probably win. If knight g7, there's knight f6 check. Did he play rook g7? Yeah, he's played it. And if king g7, let's see what Vichy decides on. He's just retreated to f3. He is an exchange down, but his pieces are so much more active than their black counterparts that I believe white is still pretty much winning. Knight d5, he took on h6. It's king to h7. At least there is no bishop d5 and knight f6 yet, because his knight is covering that square. But there has to be something here for white. Be it knight d6 or knight fg5. Painting a bit too many arrows, aren't I? Let's see. Knight d6 has been played. Very nice square, hitting the rook and the bishop. And if the rook were to go to d8, then bad things would have happened here. So Nakamura went to e7. When bishop f8, wow. I thought he was just going to take, but bishop f8, clearing the h6 square for the queen. Very nice little move as well. Yeah, it looks like black's defenses are just crumbling all over the place. Let's say you go rook c7, then queen h6, followed by queen takes g6. Should wrap it up. So it looks like a very nice game by Vichy, who's stepped up his game here for the last game. Yeah, rook c7 on the board, queen h6. Oh, hang on, rook g7. My apologies, not rook c7. Rook g7 stops queen h6, but the problem is it can just be captured. And now Vichy just simplifies, gets rid of this knight. Next move is going to take on c8 with a material advantage. Therefore, Nakamura resigns. Nakamura still qualifies and I believe wins the event with 3.5 out of 5. Vichy Anand on 3 out of 5. So Alexei Shirov, Levan Aronian have to win their games in order to stay in the running for third place. What's going on here? The game between Aronian and Kramnik seems to have ended. How did it end though? Ended with a win for Kramnik. if I'm not mistaken. The final position looks totally winning for Kramnik. You see it. He somehow managed to grab his opponent's queen. I don't know what happened there. But that means Kramnik moves into 2.5 out of 5. Probably not enough should Alexei Shirov not lose his game. So let's see how things are for Shirov. With a draw, he manages to finish in the top 3 and thereby qualify. Should he lose, he would be tied with Vladimir Kramnik, and the Buchholz system or the Sonneborn-Berger system or whatever tiebreak system they're using would have to decide. Regarding the position, only black can be better, but it looks like a fortress. It looks like black can make no progress. White just keeps his bishop on this diagonal. And I think that is what happened. I believe the game is over, ended in a draw. See the players getting up. Yeah, they shook hands a minute earlier. So that leaves us with our top 3 qualifiers. Hikaru Nakamura wins this opening round, but it doesn't count for points. It only counts for the colors, which of the rapid tournament, which starts tomorrow. 3.5 out of 5, losing his last game when he already had tournament victory read up. And the 2 veterans, Vishy Anand and Alexei Shirov, both on 3 out of 5, grab that extra white, secure it for the... I guess they're white tomorrow in the first game as well. For the upcoming rapids, the players who have to play an extra black are Vladimir Kramnik on 50%, 2.5 out of 5, Levan Aronian, 2 out of 5, and Anish Giri, 1 out of 5. Things didn't go so well. There we see applause, we see Anatoly Karpov, and earlier we've seen Viktor Korchnoi in the audience. That's it from here already. Come back tomorrow. I believe if you want sound for the events we see on the screen and see what's happening over there, you can always switch to the German feed. They're doing commentary in German from live on site with Werner Hug and Yannick Pelletier. They can probably tell you more about what's going on. We're also going to see them tomorrow interviewing some players after the games. However, I'll be here sitting and trying to tell you what's going on, or at least to make dumb jokes while these world-class players are playing their games. It's been fun. It's been fast and furious as Blitz tends to be. Tomorrow it's going to be a little slower. We have 40 minutes plus 10 seconds per move. So one round should take a little more than 2 hours. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Stay tuned for, or come back tomorrow for the Zurich Chess Challenge. Starts at 3 p.m. whatever time zone I'm in. I'm in Germany. GMT +1, 3 p.m. GMT +1, I believe. So see you guys then. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show and especially the chess. There's a lot more to come. See you then. Bye bye.